and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 6 of Moksha Talks. And before I introduce the subject, let me say one round of thanks to the Creative Arts Academy for very kindly allowing us to do this show here in this beautiful hall. We also did a similar episode last month in February. Those of you who have watched it, you must have seen the same place. It must be looking familiar. Thank you very much, Ramanjeet. Thank you, Anju. And thank you whoever is responsible for allowing us to work here. I would also like to, right at the beginning, thank my panel here. That's Amita Prasad. I will introduce them one by one. This is Priyadarshinee Guha. This is Dr. Shampa Mukherji. I am Shampa Mukherji, and the reason I'm saying this is because in the last episode, apparently some people referred to me as Moksha Mukherji. So I was a little aghast, and one of my friends told me that you better not assume that everybody knows you. Well, obviously everybody doesn't know me, so therefore this is Shampa Mukherji. So let's get started, and thank you for coming. Today is also the Ides of March, and when Amita and Priyadarshinee decided on this date, they said it jokingly, and I also smiled and said, yes, let's not assassinate education, because that's what we are going to talk about. But what has happened is it's assassinated my audience, because there are many other shows happening in the city today, and everybody seems to be busy doing other things. So we don't really have a big audience today, but then we will go on YouTube, so you will all be able to catch it, which is okay. But it's always nice to have you all here and to watch your reactions and to listen to you speak. That is not going to happen today, not too much, except for my extremely loyal set of friends who are always here for me, and I cannot be, I really don't have the words with which to thank them, especially Nandini Mukherji, who was my colleague and my mentor in many, many ways, and I'm extremely grateful to her and to Dr. Das and to Ratnavali. I have some ex-students sitting over there. It's very, very happy. I'm very happy to see them. So let me first introduce my two main speakers from the world of education. Amita Prasad, she's done her master's in modern history from Jadavpur University, where she was awarded 3 gold medals for her distinguished academic performance. She found her passion in school teaching, which she made her vocation for the last 35 years of her life. After her long service in Modern High School for Girls, where she was vice principal, she was appointed Dean, Research and Development, and then Vice Principal at the Heritage School, Kolkata. At present, she is Director, Indus Valley World School, Kolkata. Amita has been closely involved with teacher development programs, has been a resource person at numerous workshops on creative teaching in schools, motivating and training teachers, and she's the co-author of 4 series of history and civics textbooks for classes 3 to 8, published by Oxford University Press. She does a whole lot of other things as well. It's too long for me to read. So I would rather talk about how I know Amita. She was my junior in school. She was a star debater. Whatever she does to perfection and in the calmest of manners. I mean, even if I have to do something and even if I do it well, I end up looking aside, but she never does. She always maintains this extremely calm exterior. Whatever goes on inside, we do not know. She will not even let us know. So Amita has been a friend. She's been someone, even though she's younger to me, much, much younger, but I'm in complete awe of her. And it's so very wonderful to have her on this show. Thank you, Amita. Next up is Priyadarshinee Guha. She's an alumna of Loretta House, La Martiniere for Girls, and Presidency College, Kolkata. Priyadarshinee is a master's in modern history and a gold medalist from Calcutta University. Now, it's not every day that you have so many gold medalists all around you. I'm feeling extremely inadequate. Passionate about teaching, she chose to make this her life force. Priyadarshinee has been teaching history and English for the last 27 years in reputed schools of Calcutta, namely Modern High School for Girls, the Heritage School. Currently, she is the vice principal of IVWS. As a teacher of history, she has conducted several workshops for students and for training teachers in using novel and creative approaches in the classroom. I can vouch for that. She was a trainee teacher in Modern High School for her B.Ed years. and I was the assessor, and she's magnetic. When you're sitting in her classroom, you forget who you are, you forget that you are a seasoned teacher, you forget that you are there to write notes and not listen to her like that, but that's exactly what she can do to you. She's absolutely fascinating, and I would love to be back in her class. I never was in her classroom except when I was assessing her, but I would love to be there because history has never been a favorite, but if she taught me and she taught me, maybe it would be. She's a trained singer. She has worked for several years in a reputed Bengali theatre group in Kolkata. She's carried the theatre into the classroom, and she's she's mounted several award-winning productions under her direction. She's a multifaceted person. She's been the master of ceremonies for events and is a regular at the Tata Kolkata Literary Beat since its inception and given talks to the city in varied audiences. I also have over here, as a parent representative, Dr. Shampa Mukherji. I do not have his CV and I don't intend to read out how many medical colleges he's been to and what he has won. To me, he is an extremely important parent because I taught his son and I realized that he's just the kind of parent that you would want around you. Sensible, full of values, which he completely imparted to both his children. They're absolutely delightful kids, and the son is extremely naughty as well, so they are not angels. But in spite of that, they are delightful. And there are certain naughty kids that you will remember all your life, and his son is one of them. So when I was planning this with Amita and Priyadarshinee, and we decided to have one student and one parent on board, I immediately thought of him so graciously. Imagine, busy doctor sitting here with me, and in the evening he actually called up to ask me whether there is a dress code. I found that so endearing. I mean, which doctor does this? So thank you so much, Dr. Mukherji. We will hear more from you. The student, unfortunately, is not yet here. When she comes, I'll introduce you, or maybe Priyadarshinee will. She's caught in traffic and we are waiting for her, but in the meantime, we can carry on. A few disclaimers before we start. We will be only talking about the Kolkata schools, and we're only going to talk about schools. We are not talking about any other sector. The problems or the issues may be the same, may not be the same. The moment you bring in the rural sector, a whole lot of other things come in. We are not avoiding it, but simply because we will not have the time to address the whole of it, we are not going to look at it. The next thing that we are, I have to say this right at the beginning, that for everything that we are going to say, there will always be exceptions. There are many things that we generalize, but then there are always exceptions to that rule, and once we delve into that discussion, I think you will know what I'm talking about. We are also not going to use any proper nouns. No school, no board, no names, no teachers, no students are to be named, because that's not what we want. We are just here to talk about generic issues. And two other things that we are not going to look at. One is children with special needs. That's a very large area of work. We cannot possibly do this all together today. Someday in the future, I hope I can get some subject experts and we can address this issue. It's a very important thing to talk about and very important to be conscious about, but not today. So if we haven't done it, it's because we planned it that way. And the other thing that we are not going to talk about is AI, because again, that will be another whole area. And also, quite frankly, of which I know very little. And not that I'm particularly eager to know about it, but then when we do a session, I guess I'll have to do my research and do my studies. We have decided to talk about a triangle. The maths teachers present here must be so happy. The 3 points would be parents, teachers, students. And we are going to explore the area that lies within the area of that triangle. So, We are going to look at heroes and villains, because that's what we've called our session today, Education Today, Heroes and Villains. And we're going to look at the heroic deeds and the villainous deeds that happen within that triangle. Now, one very easy villain is COVID-19. Everyone is so happy to put it all on COVID, Oh, it messed up education and it did this and it did that. Well, yes, it did, but there were many heroic deeds also which happened at that time. Many teachers, many students did what they had to, did it extremely well, and those are people that we learn from and we are eternally grateful to. There are other stakeholders, of course. And my friend Mundini pointed that out to me. The policymakers, for instance, they apparently, when the policy is drawn up and syllabi is drawn up, they apparently don't even consult teachers. So they are the ones who are left to teach a gigantic syllabus over 200 working days in a year. Yeah. And the children are struggling, the teachers are struggling. And frankly, I don't see any sense in any of it, but then, who am I? I mean, the policymakers are policymakers, they are the ones who decide what they have to do. It's not a happy situation, but then we will ignore that for the time being and we will go back to our triangle. The first point in the triangle that we're going to talk about is teachers. Because I honestly feel, and this is my take and I'm sure people will agree with me, that a school can be only as good as the teachers are. No amount of smart boards and smart classrooms and technology and all the rest of it can really make the school as good as a school which has really good teachers. They are the pillars on which a school stands. So that's the first point of the triangle. Now, we all know what makes a good teacher. Of course we do. We've seen so many films to serve it love. We've read so many books. So we know what the teachers are meant to be. So let's just briefly talk about a few, and I'll ask you all to join in, please. One of them is that teachers who are heroes, they make every effort to find out the background information for every child. And fortunately for some of us here, we have met such teachers. We've met such departmental heads who could rattle off the background story of every child that came under her, her purview. And those are the real heroes, because to have that kind of dedication, to have that kind of commitment, it takes a lot. But then that is something that one must know, because unless you have the background, the child is only a cutout. You have to place that cutout against that background, and only then the whole picture makes sense to you. So we were talking about COVID a little while ago. Let me just go back to that again and look at the heroes that emerged at that time. They literally had to change gears, move from the real to the virtual world. Some of them were not that, not that tech savvy. They learned to handle technology, computer classes online. If a child was playing truant, we had to find ways in which that could be prevented. We learned how to do online corrections. We had to do so much. And at the same time, the teachers were also struggling with a changed home atmosphere, where maybe the whole family was working together, the internet was collapsing, the children were also trying to do their work, their classes, the father was trying to do office. So yes, it was a very, very hard time. And in spite of that, some teachers have emerged as heroes, some students have emerged as heroes. So we can't blame the system. We have to look for these qualities which make people heroes, students or teachers or schools or whatever else it might be. Yes, endless time was demanded from you. The teaching was not just during the school hours. We went beyond and over. There were meetings in the evenings. There were students with queries. And you had to be available, and it wasn't easy. But then nobody said that being a teacher is easy. So That's what I call a real hero. So Priyadarshinee apparently has mentioned this in one of the talks that she's given, that doctors and nurses have been given acknowledgement and recognized for their service to mankind during COVID. I think teachers deserve almost the same, if not more,
Definitely.
because they too have put in so many hours of work and so many hours of change.
If I can just come in here, this is a thought that has stayed with me since COVID hit us. And, I've seen it in colleagues and we all did it. And I don't know how we did it because it's something that I keep going back to. Because where we are, there were teachers, and I'm sure this was common in all schools, there were many teachers who weren't that tech savvy. And overnight, we expected them to be able to just transform themselves and talk to a screen. Not only talk to a screen, handle a screen. Handle all these little windows over there where there were children, and besides that, adhere to a timetable. I know for a fact that at our school, we didn't miss a single day. I mean, I know COVID hit us, the lockdown happened 21st March. And we went into lockdown. That was the end of the session. I still remember that we were planning for prize days. And the police came to our school and said that, you need to shut down and you need to go back home. And we went back home. I still remember, I went back to school after a year, and it was in my office that all the prize books were lined up. We had seen a summer, we had seen a monsoon, we had seen a winter that had gone by, and they were just lying there. And, that's what had happened. And how teachers, and I really want to salute them, how they took this transition. They made this transition. They made it so smoothly that as per our school diary, we reopened school online without missing a single day. Plus, I want to mention this, because, I know so many schools now believe in this, that we are looking at the holistic development of children. We are not only looking at, churning out academic brilliance, because that is no longer the only thing that colleges and universities are looking for. They are looking for those students who have that cutting edge, who can make that difference. And for that, this co-curricular thing that had to be done, even though we were in the online mode, was such a challenge. And yet, this is where I think when we are talking about the triangle, all three emerged as heroes. Because if the teachers wanted to do something, and we did not have the cooperation of the students or the parents, it wouldn't have happened. I know we didn't miss celebrating a single festival throughout the COVID 1.5 years that we were locked up at home. We did everything. We celebrated all festivals. And I can give an example of dance. It is something where the presence of the teacher is necessary in front of you to settle a child's hand or to tell the child you're not holding a mudra properly. And all that happened online. And not only that, parents opened up their cupboards. I've never forgotten this. The teachers told me, ma'am, the mothers have opened up their cupboards and they are telling us, ma'am, please choose which sari I should make my daughter wear when she will do the recording. Parents learned that there was something as a portrait mode and a landscape mode in their phone cameras.
And how they also learned to use alternative space.
Exactly. Yes, and the drawing room was suddenly transformed. They even learned that they had to cover switchboards to give us a blank background on, in front of which the child would perform. All this happened, and it's magical because it wouldn't have happened if the hero in each of these three categories had not emerged. And that tremendous cooperation and collaboration that happened, not physically, but virtually, made, I know COVID happened, we weren't sure whether we would be alive or not thereafter.
Exactly.
But, that I can only look back with that tremendous sense of hope that was generated every single day. That yes, we are there and we are together. I think, I have to salute all three.
I don't think we specially need to talk about coping with the load that a teacher carries, but maybe Amita, you would like to talk about this.
Uh, yes, in fact, when we talk about multitasking, I think teachers take it to an altogether different level, because we all know, say a school like ours, teachers have to report to school at 7:15 in the morning. Now, before that, they have to cook for the day, they have to pack children's tiffins, they have to take care of aging parents, and so on and so forth. And then when they enter the school gates, they are literally on duty every second. Even if you're not in the classroom, you're still on duty. And this is across all classes, particularly the teachers who teach in the primary school.
Probably across all schools
Across
as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very much.
So,
What is
then-
it? It's 28 to 32 periods a week normally.
that is the actual teaching load.
Yeah. Plus.
But what about all the substitution duties that we all know? And apart from that, a teacher is an accountant. She has to collect money whenever children are, for example, going on a trip, or for whatever reason, they have to serve as companions to children who are feeling lonely. They have to be agony aunts to the parents who want to come and cry on their shoulders. I mean, there are just about, and then there are teachers who are often asked to teach subjects that they are really not all that proficient, and I'm mentioning it because I know my dear friend here has that experience. But so you are actually studying in order to take classes. We talk about teachers having to be lifelong learners. Now that's all very well when you say it, it sounds beautiful, but to take time out on a daily basis to prepare your lesson. I know that we often, I can speak for all of us, I'm sure, when all your day's work is done and you are ready to crash, that's when you actually have to force yourself to stay awake, preparing your lessons for the next day. So there is, the work pressure is enormous, and the stress levels are very, very high, because the level of expectations, not when you walk into a class and you see those 30, 40, 50 eager, bright faces waiting for you to deliver a lesson, you just have to put in more than your 100%
Completely.
and forget about if you've had a fight with your husband, or if you've had a row with your mother-in-law, or if it's a day when you're just not feeling well, or if you have a lousy toothache. But you just have to be there in the classroom and deliver the best possible lesson you can do under the circumstances. So I feel that multitasking and taking on so many responsibilities, I think it really brings the hero out of every teacher.
I found something that I found very interesting, that teachers who are continuously burdened with extra work are the teachers who do it very well. And the reward for doing this extra work is more work.
Yes.
So sometimes, and we've seen that even in even in life. I mean, one sister-in-law in the family who's very efficient ends up doing everything while the others are chilling. So it's not very different. It's pretty much the same everywhere. Yeah. The next one is remuneration, and do I really need to talk about this? I mean, it's not commensurate to the kind of work and hours that Amita just described. And if the same man or woman had joined the corporate sector, how much more would they earn? Probably double, treble, whatever, God knows.
Several.
So it is. The salary would not be as exciting, and yet they are there in it. So for the passion, I mean, if that's not heroic, then what is?
But can I bring in the villain here?
Yeah, of course you can.
Because I don't want to comment about generations, but this I feel is leading to certain things among teachers, and I'm saying young teachers, um, which is sad. And that's where, I know we've spoken about the hero, but I want to bring in that side. Something that you don't usually find in the generation of teachers like my mother, or even those who have retired now and all, is that they just gave of themselves. There was no time limit. Nothing was time bound. But what is happening now is that this remuneration issue somewhere, I think, plays at the back of the mind of young people now, and they feel that, okay, school has gotten over at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, whatever. I'm off. I'm no longer going to be on call for school work or any work that needs my attention vis-a-vis the children in my class or school. Now that I feel is something that is a tad worrisome, because teachers are like no other, and particularly now, what we are seeing, I know we are not going to be delving into children with special needs, etc., but children are far more troubled now than they were earlier.
Definitely. Certainly.
And for that, I feel they need that hand that they need to hold. But how many of the young people are willing to give it? I am sure there are many who are doing it as we speak. But then this is an area I worry about now. That, is it that because my salary requires me to work from 7:20 to 2:30, and thereafter I'm going to switch off mode and I will reorient myself only at 7:20 tomorrow morning? In the middle, I'm not available. This is a question I'm leaving with everyone to think about.
In fact, I would like to bring in two small points in this context. This commercialization which has come in has led to a number of issues. One of the issues that I would like to comment on is that I feel that teachers who teach the primary school are of immense importance, because they are the ones who actually build the foundations.
Absolutely.
And the tragedy is that they are the worst paid in the hierarchy. And as a result, teachers are always aspiring to get promoted. So anybody who feels that they are good enough, and I'm using all this within quotes, to teach higher classes, they feel that they want to be promoted by the school administration, and therefore we all know, when we look back, we remember our kindergarten teachers most fondly, and they have been really unforgettable. Their role in our lives has been beyond measure. Secondly, because of these abysmally low salaries, whenever we ask a class of high school students, how many of you would like to become teachers?
Not a single hand.
Not a single. In fact, I would celebrate if even one hand was to go up.
In fact, I was coming to that point when my daughter or my son, all of our children, they go to counselors, that career counseling. I want to be this, I want to be that, etc., etc. I don't remember hearing even a single kid of my kids' friends or my friends, their children, ever, anybody having been even told by the teachers, do you want to be a teacher? I don't think I remember anybody. I think the teachers can also probably take maybe encourage them to be good teachers. Salary, okay, that's a major issue everywhere.
But Dr. Mukherjee, I have to say this here, that it's also, I want to bring in the role of the parent here. And we come back to mindset. My child is successful only if my child is a doctor, a barrister, or an engineer, or a banker. But never in that list do you find teacher.
Ma'am, that is because success is equated to the salary
Financial
that you
success.
Agree.
In fact, even in the newspaper, what do we read? We read about the classic IIT, IIM graduates, and what is the measure of the success? How many crores you are earning as a salary package, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why teaching is not a preferred option is simply because of this. And I'm not even going to, I think, beyond the scope of today's discussion, that then there is a hierarchy of subjects. Because if you want to be a teacher of a subject which is perceived to be a subject for brilliant students, then at least there is some saving grace. But if you're a teacher of subjects like you and I have studied, God help us. I mean, I will pause to tell you about this little anecdote of a boy who was, a young boy in our building, and he would play with my daughter in our building compound. And one day he got to know that I'm a school teacher. And then he asked me, he said, "Oh, auntie, I heard you're a teacher. What subject do you teach?" And I said, "History." And I could see the expression in his eyes, which said, "Oh, poor thing, that means she wasn't good enough to do anything else." So, that is how it is. And somewhere along the line, I do feel it is because of these very, very poor salaries, which is, fortunately, it has changed with the UGC scales, and, college teaching has become a
Decent.
lot more attractive. But unfortunately, school teaching, and
Not yet.
particularly primary school teaching, I wouldn't even like to tell you how low their salaries are. And, if you compare their salaries to other people in other walks of life, it's pathetic.
Okay, to the villains now. My God, that list is so long. I think in my list, the highest one is that hunger for power that a teacher enjoys in the classroom and inevitably leads to misuse of that power, because that acid tongue that some of them have, and they scar children for life. I mean, that is not your birthright to say what the hell you want to your students simply because they're so much younger. It is just not ethical, not kind, not right. There are teachers who will look for shortcuts. In other words, they will come into a classroom without preparing a lesson. They will come and say, "What was I teaching?" And then the students will give rubbish answers because they are looking at wasting time. Obviously, if a teacher comes and does not know what she's teaching, then the children are not to be blamed here. There are teachers who find ways to disobey school rules. They go in for private tuition when they are not supposed to. All that. I mean, again, unethical, corrupt, immoral. I don't even wish to add more words.
I want to add something here. What is progressively becoming a serious worry area is that I remember when we were children, we would look for every single opportunity to go to school. And nowadays, when we have to plan programs for school, we have to always think of, and here I'm mainly talking about the senior children, that it can never be on a Saturday. They are not willing to go to an inter-school fest on a Saturday. They are not willing to come to school for a school program on Saturday. And the villain here is the private tuition. Because, I don't want to say names, but there are things which are like Batash, etc., where these are held over the weekends on Saturdays and Sundays. And the poor children, whether they want to be there or not, their parents have enrolled them there because that is the main stepping stone to success, according to the parents. And the children have come around to believe that that is so. So, come hail, storm, rain, it does not matter, we have to be there. I've even had student council members. Wearing a student council badge in school was one of the highlights in our lives. You have student council members who say, "No, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I can't come. I mean, we wouldn't dream of saying that to our teachers, but now we have to be that
It's
much
not a
more
school
accepting.
day.
It's not a school
School
day.
day.
We
And you
can't
can't
come.
force them.
No, you can't.
That's the problem.
That is the new thing. You can't force them, and it's private tuition. So coming to school has become incidental. Oh, I come to school when I have time. Otherwise, I am at tuition. And the other thing is, they are perforce coming to school because some of the boards insist on a certain percentage of attendance for them to qualify for the examination. So where are we headed?
Back to the villainous teachers?
Absolutely.
In fact,
They-
I remember that in one of the schools where I have taught, I remember a child telling me, "Oh, we come to school to party. The real study happens in the tuitions."
So
Okay.
I've heard of teachers actually who say in the classroom that here I'm not going to teach. Come to the tuition
Yes.
and I will
Yes,
teach you there.
yes, absolutely.
So then what is the message that the teacher is sending
Sending
across
out
to the children?
That, yeah, villain number one. And then there are teachers who will never be able to meet deadlines, never submit their mark sheets on time. They will never correct their papers on time, and even if they do, the why a child has lost a mark is never explained to the children. So the children say, "Ma'am, she cut me the marks," and I said, "Why? I don't know." So this is another
No, and
huge
if she
problem.
asks, if a child
Then further marks are
dares
cut.
to ask, exactly, they, far from offering an explanation, they are told to keep quiet in the most unceremonious
Way,
manner.
yeah.
Yes.
Like, when we are looking at answer scripts that the teachers have corrected before they go to the children, and I ask a question that, why have you deducted this mark? What is the reason? I mean, the teacher is looking at me as is something wrong with you? Why are you asking me this strange question? It's deducted means it's deducted. So now, if that is the approach I have
Exactly.
as a teacher, then what is it that I'm taking into the classroom?
And,
And small things, which, correction I always felt was an art. This is something that we don't pay enough attention to, but it is an art. And we must be careful about, because to every child, that paper that the child is getting back is very important.
Very.
And even say you have deducted a mark for spelling, then mark that and let the child know that I have deducted it for spelling. But that is not being done. Just slash, the question is on 5, the child has got 3. Where are the 2 marks lost?
Okay, I'm
Tell me
assuming
that.
you're talking about test papers and exam papers. Because the other kind of corrections have vanished from the face of the
Oh
earth.
yes.
I mean, there is
Get
no
there.
written work given anywhere. Children write 2 essays a year. I kid you not. They
Yeah.
write 2 essays a year. One for the half-yearly exam, one for the final exam. The rest of the
I
year
agree
they do.
with you 100%. And it's happening in prominent schools in the.
Oh yeah. And let's not get there.
No,
Okay.
And also, what about the teachers whose sole method of teaching is dictating notes?
Yeah.
So they have prepared those
No,
notes.
you haven't qualified that. Notes coming from a yellowed sheet
Yes.
of paper, which she's probably prepared 20 years
20
ago.
years ago,
and she's
not
still using
updated.
that. Yeah.
Never updated,
Yeah.
and she enters the class, begins in a dull, monotonous voice, not like my friends on either side whose voices make things interesting. In a dull monotone, they will dictate notes, and the children are expected to attend their classes diligently. When you can and this is where technology can help, because if you just want to share notes, either
Share it.
just photocopy it or just mail it to the children. Why does a teacher have to spend day after day precious class time just dictating notes?
And may I just bring in one more thing? I heard this story today and I have to share it with everybody. You can laugh about it, you can cry about it. A biology teacher, a colleague of mine, we were having lunch together today, and she told me, I have to share this with you, ma'am. I didn't know what to do. So it's not in our school, it was in another reputed school, and she was teaching there at that point of time. And she was summoned by the coordinator and told, you'll have to check these test papers all over again. This teacher, she really doesn't seem to know anything. And look at this question, a parent has written a nasty email. So fair enough, what was the question? The question says, name 2 cereal crops. That's all, it's a 1 marker. So the child has written rice, wheat. And the teacher has given a tick on rice and a cross on wheat. Now the parents are obviously astounded and they have sent an email with a picture and saying what is happening. So this biology teacher, who is a senior teacher, she questioned this colleague and said that, what is this? Why have you marked this wrong? Because the child is right. Now the textbook is chilona.
Seriously.
So, she said,
Not surprised. I was surprised.
My colleague, when she was narrating this story to me, she said, আমি তখন হাসবো না আমি তখন কাঁদবো আমি না ঠিক বুঝতে পারছি না তখন আমি বললাম তুই জানিস তো যে wheatটাও সিরিয়াল she had to go down to that level না কিন্তু ওটা তো টেক্সটবুকে ছিল না.
Well, I'm glad they didn't say it from the dietitian's point of view that rice is not okay and wheat is okay or whatever, the reverse.
On this topic, although we are talking about school, we had a pathology professor who once told us that he used to come to the class and tell us, don't take any notes. No notes, nothing. And he would say that if I have to give you notes, why do we have Walter Israel, why do we have Robbins, or these books are there. So a job of a teacher is to inculcate in you a sense that I want to learn more.
Exactly.
And I thought it was...
That's the hero.
I thought it was fantastic. So for my children, in fact they landed in trouble quite often. They were, because of one of these reasons, we told them that always question. I may be wrong, your mother may be wrong, your grandparents may be wrong. Don't disrespect, but if you feel they are wrong, question them.
But the questions are not encouraged in class.
Now, so they would do the same thing in school. And sometimes the teachers would understand and sometimes they would say like, how dare you question me?
Exactly. Because it's like an insult to them, right?
I remember, I remember I was having a drink or something and I told my son, I'm not supposed to have it. There are too many party seasons going on. He actually told me, Baba, you said you wouldn't have it. I said, you're absolutely right. So if we are not accountable, how can we expect our children to be accountable? So I think 2 words, credibility and accountability.
Very
I want to
important.
add something about correction. Very recently I was told, ma'am, you correct papers very nicely. That's what I didn't understand. What is nicely? And she said, you don't correct by keywords, do you? I said, what? And she said, because everybody else does.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
I was horrified.
Okay, now I have a very interesting, well, not last, but one of the last things to say about the villainous teachers, who are very popular, but for all the wrong reasons. Oh, Miss So-and-so is very nice, Miss. She never gives us homework. So-and-so is very nice. She sits and chats with us. She never teaches. These are not reasons to like a teacher. And unfortunately, the kids have no way of knowing any better. So you actually have to, take them through that. And if parents are not contributing here, and we'll do that when we come to the parent segment, it's very important that children have that discerning power, that who is and who is not doing the right job. If a teacher she's very nice, she gives us lots of marks. What do you mean lots of marks? Marks are meant to be given exactly as much as you're supposed to get. You can't get more, you can't get less. But then no, that's not acceptable. So-and-so is a bad teacher because she's strict. So-and-so is an excellent teacher because she's lenient. So-and-so is so good, but she never ever scolds us. We sit in the back and we eat. So, all the wrong reasons for being extremely popular. My father used to say this, "Jadar kichu hoy na tara pora teacher hoy." And I used to hate him for it. When I decided to be a teacher, he said, "What?" Exactly in that expression. So once you have been through school and I have spent 45 years in this profession, now I feel seriously those who can, and those who can't, they become teachers, unfortunately. We can literally count the number of effective, good teachers that we have. We are only talking about Kolkata, we are only talking about Kolkata schools. So imagine, multiply that by that many number of schools, that many number of cities, that many number of states, and what is the number? Astounding. Okay, now we really need to move on to parents and would you want to?
In fact, I'll take the cue from something Priyadarshinee mentioned, nasty emails. So, when we were in school, our parents hardly ever went to school. In fact, even the report cards were handed over to the
us,
students.
yes.
And we took the report card home and got it signed, and it was returned to school. And a parent being called to school was something
issue.
major.
But it happened very
Very,
rarely.
very
I don't
rarely.
remember. I mean, that many parents coming to school also.
So even parent-teacher meetings were few and far between, and if we ever carried, first of all, I can't even remember carrying stories about what happened in school
to
back
the
to
house,
the parent. I mean, your school life was one thing, and your life with your parents was something
And
quite
they wouldn't
different.
encourage us to
Never.
tell tales about
Never.
teachers.
And
Never encourage us.
If we
If
ever
you've done something wrong, which is why you've been
Absolutely.
scolded.
if we spoke about something that maybe a teacher had said, I mean, it was taken for granted that the parent would side with the teacher.
Correct.
All right? I mean, immediately the conclusion was, you must have done something wrong, and that is why you've got into trouble. I'm sorry to say now, it's exactly the opposite. Because there is not one single day in school when we don't receive either long emails. Somehow parents seem to have a lot more time on their hands to write these long emails about what I feel sometimes are non-issues. And I also feel there is a very serious trust deficit. Because whenever, if a student has complained for anything, the parent will always assume that the child is right and that the teacher is the villain of the piece, or the school is at fault. And the tragedy is that a teacher's word is not good enough, because the only thing that saves us, and I am acutely embarrassed and saddened to say this, we have only thing that saves us is the CCTV camera footage. So whenever, however trivial the issue, the parent will only believe the school if we can back it up with CCTV camera footage. What the teacher actually says, or what the principal of the school says, is never accepted at face value. And this is something which I feel is very, very sad. Because that means, where is the trust?
There is no trust.
There is no trust.
You know what you say, the virtue of the word coming from a respected authority, like the principal or the teacher or anybody in authority, that virtue of the word is totally
Gone.
lost.
So,
And I want to just add to what Amita is saying here. We even have parents deciding for us what their children are good at. I mean, I can't get over this. I mean, just recently I received an email, and the parent is telling us that my child has won so many prizes, as you are already aware of. I'm not aware of, never mind, in singing. And how is it that for the upcoming concert, you have not chosen him to be part of the school choir? And believe you me, the language. There were 4 paragraphs in the email. As she said, people have enormous time and had hand to write that. As per my logical understanding. So what are you trying to imply? That the rest of the world is illogical. And as per my logical understanding, how is it possible that my child has not been selected? Now, I mean, your child may be good at singing, I'm accepting that. But why is it that we have to give every child this notion that you're the best thing that happened to the world? I mean, there's no harm in accepting the fact that I'm an ordinary man. It's fine. And I may be good at what I do, but I'm not the best. And why will a child be given this notion right from the time he is, let's say, in class 2 or 3, that you're the best in this and you're the best and you're the best and nothing can be better?
Yeah, that's where the entitlement comes
Yeah,
from.
exactly.
They feel very, very entitled.
Exactly. I had a parent writing to me telling me, my daughter, and the child is very good, okay? This is another child I'm talking about. My child is so good, but please see to it hereafter that she only gets a solo in every school program, or else she will not perform. Did our parents ever do things like that?
I think these are very interesting point, and it stems from, I think, maybe 3-4 factors. One is the insecurity of the parent.
Yeah.
I remember telling one of my friends that I don't want my son to prove what I am in my life, son or daughter. So when my son was in, I think, class 2 or 3, I remember he got a prize for whatever, I don't remember. So he came home and said, Baba, what are you going to give me? Class 3, he came something. So I told him, why should I give you a prize? He said, no, but my other friends are getting a prize because they came first in this and this. So I told him one thing, that did you like going on stage and did you enjoy getting the prize from the father? He said, I loved it. I loved all of you clapping and all. So I told him, you know what?
That's the prize.
Even we felt very good for you. But even if you hadn't got that prize, we would have loved you equally. Even if you hadn't got that prize, we would have loved you equally if you had put in your effort. So believe me, if you're going to get that first position or whatever, you're doing it for yourself. If you are happy with staying at the back of the class and doing whatever, and if you're happy with it, I have nothing. Both me and your mother will love you equally. So if you're doing it, doing whatever it takes to come first in whatever, it's for yourself. And if you're not doing it, it's for yourself. So learn to take credit for whatever you're doing.
And the responsibility.
And I told him, "Why you the first try? Hale second da hobe."
Dr. Mukherji, can we make some clones of you and put them in every?
Exactly.
No, this was so interesting because recently my daughter, wherever she is, her project was accepted and then suddenly they cancelled it at the last moment. She was very upset. Within 5 minutes, and mind you, she is not in Calcutta, so we were talking on the phone. And then after a couple of minutes, I told her, like, you know what, you're still not entered the professional world. This is life. Accept it and move on.
Exactly.
Don't think that Sachin Tendulkar, every time he was given out, he was out. But life is a great equalizer. Quite often he is out, but he's not given out.
Correct.
So accept it and move on. Believe me, in 5 minutes, she was like, fine, I'll move on with my next project. Why can't people accept children what they are? All of the kids are good. All kids are good. And I'm sure they have their strengths and weaknesses. And the teachers, I think, have to point out where the strengths are. I remember one of our teachers once told us that the kids stay with us for only 8 hours. They are with you for 16 hours.
Exactly.
So you have a huge responsibility.
Huge.
Don't turn us into villains.
No, in fact, just continuing from that point, this is exactly what, when it comes to disciplining the children, the parents whom I meet are typically parents whose children are of the age group of 2 to 4 years. You know, they come for nursery and kindergarten admissions. And you can see that the children are wild. Even though I meet them for hardly 5 minutes, I can see they are absolutely wild. And then very indulgently, the parent will say, "Ona amar ekdom kotha shone na." Now the parent's average age is 30 and the child's average age is 3. and they are already helpless, and then they expect the school to
Discipline.
take charge of the discipline, and that's exactly what we say, because at the kindergarten level they spend 3 hours a day in school and they spend 21 hours at home, but very conveniently the task of disciplining the child is squarely left to the school, and the parents just conveniently wash their hands.
No, and then that also not without criticism.
Not without criticism.
No, and there's another angle to this. When they grow a little older, then the thing is, oh, why did the teacher scold my child? Now my child is traumatized.
That's a very favorite expression of
Absolutely.
today's. No, the next stage is even worse, because that's when the parents are scared of
Yes,
They
because
wouldn't dare to say anything.
no, they
can't
say,
handle.
Shampa, there's a typical expression, Jodi kichu kore, that is the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Jodi kichu kore, and we all know what that means. But the other part of it is also so frightening, because the kind of language which the children are exposed to at home, they bring that into the classroom. And I wish to share with you this
You said this
horrific experience we had of a child in upper infants, which means the child was barely 5 years old, using the filthiest language and including words that I've never heard. And so the class teacher, but the children are innocent at that age. So the class teacher actually took that child aside and asked the child, where have you heard this kind of language? Because you've never heard anyone in school use these words. And then immediately the child said, but my father uses it all the time. So you see, the child is picking up that kind of language and bringing that into this classroom. And then we get emails and complaints that my child is learning bad language in your school. So, and we heard the other day, Priyadarshinee and I were just entering school, and there was a car just ahead of us. And we heard, so there were 2 children at the back, and there were the parents in front, and the father happened to be driving the car, and he was obviously annoyed with whoever was in front. And he actually said, in the presence of the 2 children and all of us, I don't think I should use foul language over here, but kaisi star औरत गाड़ी चला ली.
Oh, there is a gender objectivity as well.
All those things.
And the 2 children are sitting behind the parents, so they pick that up.
That is the learning. That is the
So
learning.
the child, both the children will think, oh, this is fine. My papa uses it, so I am
Yes,
also
absolutely.
allowed to use it.
No, plus I think there is another big issue over here. When we were kids, we were in joint families. So most of us were. So we had, or at least we would have visiting grandparents or Jatha, Kaka, Mama, Mashi, etc. Nowadays, because of this insular nature, we would expect the parents to spend more time with the kids, which it doesn't happen.
Which does not happen.
The father is busy with his or his life, and the mother is busy with her life. It doesn't matter whether she is a housewife or whether she is a professional or whichever way you're looking at it. So the children don't actually spend time with the parents.
Absolutely.
So which I think is one of the reasons that even the parents don't know what their children want.
Absolutely.
So the moment you don't know your children, you try to pamper them with gifts or some other things.
Right.
Mobile.
And kids are like super intelligent. And the younger they are, you bribe them, absolutely.
It's all transactional.
Yes. And they're like super intelligent, they'll know. And by the time they realize what problem they are in, damage is already done.
And then comes the being scared of the kids.
Yes.
And the first stage is spoiling them, and then they start getting scared when the kids are into their teenage years, and they threaten, and if you don't do this, then
And they can be very abusive, even with their parents. They can be very, very abusive. So yes, it's a frightening situation out there. And I think if the children were told that the parents and the teachers are not the villains of your life, they are actually trying to bail you out of trouble. They are always there for you. And we have to give them that signal as parents, as teachers, that we are here for you. Until that happens, I don't think the children are ever going to be straightened out. It's a huge situation. The problem is huge.
In fact, Shampa, I feel we haven't. I mean, I know you began by talking about the triangle, and that's our focus. But I am tempted to bring another section of people who are heroes in this scenario, and that is the grandparents. Because a huge number of children today are actually being brought up by their grandparents because both parents are so busy pursuing very, very demanding careers. So it is actually the grandparents who are bringing up the children. And they don't, very often they don't have the energy.
Yes, and it's not their job.
It's not their job, but the job has been thrust upon them. And they are shouldering the whole responsibility of taking the children to school and back, and tuitions and swimming classes and what have you. And I've seen it happen.
True.
The children, some of these grandparents are not tech friendly at all. So the children are taking them for a royal ride because, they are doing things. And I know it happened in my office where, the grandparent, my heart went out to her because she looked so helpless. She said, "Ami to egolo bujhi na." And that child was up to no good, misusing the devices that he had been given. And the grandmother, in all earnestness, was really doing her best. But the children are taking advantage of these situations.
I find there is another aspect to this, which I feel in today's affluent society. By the word affluent, I mean to say that you get what you want, not what you need.
Exactly.
They don't even know the difference
Exactly.
between the two.
But we also make them think like they can get whatever they want. So I think I told in a different context, I told a patient of mine once that what your problem is, that you don't have a problem. So kids nowadays, they haven't seen the aspect when you don't have food, what happens?
Exactly.
When you don't have books,
Exactly.
what can happen to you? Because they feel they have everything. So they get bored very easily. I mean, this is a different aspect I'm bringing up.
True.
They get bored very easily. So they can do drugs, they can do different
Any kind of
addiction. And they feel like this is excitement for me. I remember when for my kids, I used to take them out and I would drive them to school every morning. And we would go through these Goriahat areas under the bridge, and we would stop and we would talk to kids. And I would show them that remember you're fortunate. I think kids need to be told they are not bad kids at all. They need to be told value and appreciate what you have. I don't think they're doing that.
No.
So that is why they're getting something, they're taking it for granted,
And then moving on to the next step.
and they're moving on to the next step.
They don't respect their privileges.
My son didn't eat twice his tiffin. Some bread or something was given. So what my wife did was, next 3 days, she didn't give him any tiffin. He was in class 1. So the other parents said, "Ki nishthur marebo. You're terrible. Your son has not eaten for a day and you don't care." He said, "Fair enough, whatever it is." On the 5th day, he came back and said, "Whatever you give me, I'll eat."
And also, in the upbringing of a child, I've seen that often the parents are in disagreement with each other. You can be in disagreement.
And they show it in front of the child.
So,
Taking advantage of
if like you said, his mother didn't give him tiffin for 3 days. So, the other person should keep quiet even if, you don't like the idea and discuss it separately.
True.
But that doesn't happen. So immediately the child, and this happens with teachers also. Teachers are talked about, everything is talked about. I think, they think it's nice to talk to their children, but they don't talk about the right.
No, they're being friends.
Friends.
They're being friends. And I have to talk about Michelle Obama's interview. She said, no, I'm not their friend, I'm their mother. I can be friendly, but she's not my friend. They are not my friends. And I really liked that, because you have to understand that there is a role as a parent that you have to, and that's not the role of a friend. You have to be able to scold, admonish, guide, monitor. These are things that parents are not doing. And it is very unfortunate. Perhaps they have their reasons. Everything, I'm sure, has a reason. But then the values that needed to be imparted at home very often are not imparted. I mean, when I met Dr. Mukherji one day and I heard him talk about how he grew up and how his children grew up, that was the one thing that I carried with me. And when we decided on this session, I thought he would be just the right person to bring on board as a parent, because he will say the things that people have stopped saying nowadays.
May I add something quickly here?
Yeah, sure.
In the sense that we're talking about parents not being friends. And this is something which is happening in many schools, where the principal or the headmistress or the headmaster decides to become the friend of the children, to fish out problems that they are having with
And conversationally, they get to know the problems.
They get to know the problem, and the problem gets distorted. Now, you imagine the condition of the teacher who gets sandwiched between the parent body and the
Authorities.
and not supporting teachers who do not do their work properly. But then, when you are told, or when, let's say, some teachers are told that you've got to be popular, forget about the lesson. I mean, you've got to be popular. Why are you going into such meticulous corrections? Parents don't want that, right? So you give a flowery picture of what is happening, ignore the problem, and what is the outcome? For the moment, you kind of put
So this is
all
all short-term glory. You're looking for short-term.
This is happening, and it's a very disturbing
No,
trend.
but
course it
even
is.
if it's short-term glory, I
It's
want to take
damaging.
up her point here. I mean, the damage is eternal.
Eternal.
You are causing
Eternal.
damage which will never be something that the child, because the child will know that, oh, this is how we operate, and
Yeah.
this is how to get around in life. So then what's happening?
They'll all be cutting corners, always.
Exactly.
They'll always cut.
And play one against the other.
In
Yes.
professional life as well.
Yes.
This is how I am going to manipulate.
Yeah.
And there are parents who come back and say that, this is not a healthy trend, why are we being asked, and we want things to be done this way. This is not very uncommon. I mean, I'm hearing this pretty often.
Yes, yes.
And I've had experiences like this myself before as well. So it is really shocking. I mean, I really cannot say what the solution would be, but it is poisoning the children to such an extent.
Yeah, I don't think we are actually looking for solutions. We are raising the issues, and it's for each one of us to find a way out of this mess. I'm not sure whether we ever will. By the time we've sorted these out, there'll be new problems.
Sure.
So that's okay. Yes,
I think
sir.
Dr. Prasad.
I'd just like to add to another villain, which I feel is the lack of spiritual education in schools today. I'm a member of the Art of Living Foundation for the last 24 years, and I've been teaching children, teenagers since 2009. I'm a teacher there, and our Vedas, our heritage, our mythology, there's so much to offer, But I feel that if this would be offered to school students from a young age and compulsorily, it could really change the scenario.
Maybe at least they could be calmer than they are.
Definitely.
But I want to bring in another point here about the children. Much as we are extremely grateful to the electronic devices that helped us tide over COVID, We cannot deny that
No, even
positive
without
side of
COVID,
it.
Priyadarshinee,
I'm
we are
saying,
extremely
that
grateful.
now that's a part and parcel of our lives. But I somehow feel, I mean, this is completely based on observation of handling children of different age groups. It's somehow that constant screen time has dulled their senses and sensibilities. Just basic response, this human interaction. They are so unaware of that because they are constantly glued to the screen. Responses have become dulled. Say I'm asking a child, now this is what you need to go up on stage and do. Now what do I expect? That I will see that response on the child's face and yes ma'am, I have understood. But the response, not only is it slow in coming, it is delayed and it is worrisome. And this is a general thing among children. Everything has somehow become slow. And that is, I am quite convinced that it's because of screen time, constant
100%,
screen time.
100%. Because not only children, even adults. Even adults. Because if we go to a restaurant, you'll be shocked to see a father, mother, two kids sitting in front. All of them are with their respective phones.
Yes.
Exactly. There's no conversation.
And this is
There is
common.
no
Very
There's no
common. No
conversation.
When
conversation.
children meet together or they go for a vacation, they are
Constantly on the
device.
phone.
They don't know how to interact anymore.
The concept of adda is not there anymore.
Not even Adda, what I feel very sad about, and maybe this is the history teacher in me coming out. Living in the city of Kolkata, the children don't know the iconic places of the city.
They don't.
And our city is something that's replete with them. They don't know, they haven't been beyond. I mean, I have to mention this. We did a project with the school in Ladakh. And it was a pilot project that was an experimental thing. And these children were doing it with the Ladakhi schools, etc. And we had a discussion. They had to portray their neighborhood, their immediate neighborhood. And we had a discussion, etc. I haven't gotten over one presentation made by a child. And mind you, the child was a bright child. I mean, as per the teachers and their assessment, and my interaction was happening at the fag end. And the entire presentation was based on inside the
Complex.
7-star apartment complex that she lives in. To her, that is her neighborhood.
In Kolkata.
In Kolkata. And I was so astounded. And I didn't want to scold the child because I realized that for the child, she comes out in her car from that apartment complex every day and comes to school in the car, gets dropped in school, picked up from school and goes back inside that apartment complex. So she has never had a sense of neighborhood. When I told her, haven't you seen a tea stall in the corner?
No, she
Haven't you
was
seen
on
some
the phone.
vegetable sellers? Because I know where she stays and I've seen them myself. She was looking at me as if, what are you talking about?
And the places for entertainment are malls.
Yes.
So, the world is these gated complexes
Yes.
And the
and
malls.
malls.
It's a complete
And that, I think Dr. Das had something to say.
That's okay.
No.
Yes. No, I was just going to narrate two very short stories, flip side stories, real life. So I've been teaching all along, running schools but teaching. Until today I've taught. When I was teaching in international school +2, and I had this huge confidence in myself that my students do not go for tuitions because the simplest problems they would come and ask me inside school, outside school hours, and I was happy they were happy. Till one day in my class, I saw a few of the girls making a very bad mistake. And I asked myself, why did I do this? One person can make a mistake. How is it that few of them are making the same bad mistake? So I asked them what happened. And this one girl, both parents are famous doctors and I don't want to mention names, was so secure with us that she just hid her mouth from the boys who might just tease them and say, my private cheater has taught this. So something hit me. My ego was hurt. So at the end of the lesson, in the corridor, I called her and asked her, why do you go for tuition? All of you, why do you go for tuition? Where am I failing? Do you not understand when I teach? Then she said something, Dr. Das, it is very, very depressing to return to an empty house. So, few of them have gathered, found a tutor, and they were going to her. And then, of course, she said, you're free to talk to us like that. And there's another thing. You don't do these for us, but she keeps us happy. And I said, how? She offers us fizzy drinks and chips every day, so we get that. So this is one story. So moving away, the teacher, the parents who have to earn, of course, equal amount of money is going to their education. The child, society will help him. And another story about my elder daughter, who was then 3.5 years old. And she had started in an international school where I was already teaching. And she was painting and singing. Choli ke piche kya hai, choli ke piche. So the teacher said, asked her, and she couldn't speak fluent English. She was only 3 years old. And she would go to my parents' house from school and I would pick her up, the same story, pick her up and go back home. So this happened. So the teacher asked, where have you learned this song? Who has taught you? The thing is that my mother's maid, the ayah, taught her this song. And she had learned it there. But Brinda was not able to say so much in English. She couldn't as a child. So when the teacher said, who have you heard this singing? Conveniently, she said, my papa. My husband said, look, chhadiye dao, my papa will jabe na. So my things aggravated. That is what this girl did, my papa. And I had to go and explain, it's not my husband. It is the maid. Missing children, even at that age, to escape from a situation, how nicely
intelligent.
you know, saying this about BRD.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, I mean, you mentioned something about the spirituality. Just continuing on that line, not exactly spiritual, but I mean, বোধহয় বাড়িতে একদিন বলেও ছিলাম, 125 years back, Swami Vivekananda said two very important things. এক হচ্ছে মহিলাদের নিয়ে যে জাতি নারীর সম্মান করে না, সে জাতির কিছু হয় না. If you don't respect women, nothing happens to that nation. And the second was, বাবা মা হওয়া খুব শক্ত কাজ. সন্তানের জন্ম দেওয়ার আগে বাবা মাকে আগে তৈরি হতে হবে.
Absolutely.
So I thought, fantastic news.
Dr. Mukherji, not only জন্মের আগে, সারা জীবন ধরে, you know, I'll tell you what, we spend a lot of time and money now on teachers training. I think parents counseling should be
Oh yes.
Compulsory.
Oh yes.
I've always said that.
Oh yes.
We have to give time to parents and do this, go on doing it because it will not happen.
I think what Swamiji meant was something very modern.
Oh,
in
yes.
the sense that, before you decide to have a child, you have to think whether you want to have a child and whether you deserve to have a child. নিজেকে তৈরি করতে হবে.
See, because it's our job to bring up the children. So we prepare them, send them to school for the final brushing up. I remember when I don't believe in caste system or anything as such. I remember, but I gave my thread ceremony to my son. I remember this. We had a discussion. I told him that I'm going to give you a thread ceremony. I'm not going to call people. I don't want to make a social spectacle out of it. For one very simple reason. I personally feel all Hindus should get a thread ceremony done. I can't talk about other religions because there is a different story altogether. Because we don't have army training in our country.
The discipline of the
You need to get that
Brahmanism.
discipline. You need to get that discipline in your life, wherein you have to wake up early in the morning, do all the shondhannik, etc., etc., etc. You have to follow that discipline for a year. And I asked him specifically, you have to go through all the steps, Gayatri Mantra porte hobe, and you have to maintain that for a year. Are you ready to do it?
And the silence.
Yes.
While
Are you ready to do it? If you're not ready to do it, I don't care, I don't believe in this thing, ami deboi na. So we had a long discussion, we went through a lot of other scriptures, and finally he said, Baba, I'm going to do it. What happened was, after that 1 year, once you have done Gayatri Mantra, whether you understand it or not, it's a different ball game altogether.
Absolutely.
Impact will be very obvious.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm sorry I have to cut you short. We haven't come to the third point of the triangle yet, and we're really running out of time.
I'll just take half a minute,
Yeah.
or even less. Dr. Mukherjee, I also asked my son the same question. My take was slightly different from yours, and his answer was no. So he didn't get it.
Fair enough.
That's okay.
I mean, you're honest with your children.
Yes.
Okay, students.
They are delightful. I mean, that's why we are teachers.
The heroes are.
Yeah, no. I mean, I have come to that point where I really believe that in every child you have to look for that. Because every child has that in him or her, and whether it's hidden or whether it's blossoming or whether you can see it with your naked eye, it really is for me as a teacher to discover that. Because
the potential.
Yes, because it lies there deep within them, and no child, I firmly believe that even after 27 years, no child comes bad. It's the other influences that make a child bad. And what's wonderful is that it's because of them that we go to school every day. I mean, that's why we are there, or else what is the reason for our existence in this profession? And it's so delightful. I mean, they give you such joy. They also make you feel so frustrated at times. I mean, you're ready to pull out your hair sometimes in despair that what am I supposed to do? But I mean, there are so many delightful moments, I think, that far, far exceeds the problem zones. And I feel that here our role as teachers is very important. Because how are we there to lend them a helping hand? I mean, they are growing up and we have to be able to help them to be able to find their way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's how they will learn.
And also, Priyadarshinee, they are doing JEE.
Yes.
They are doing multiple entrance level exams. They are coping with school. They are also very ambitious, some of them. They do not wish to compromise on marks. They have ambitious parents pushing things down their throats. Sometimes they are also told to do science when perhaps he would rather be a musician. So there are, it's very easy for us to blame children, but then they too have it's very unfortunate that our student representative didn't manage to come, but I'm sure we would have heard other things from her. But then this is true that
I can speak on her behalf. Just I'll take a minute. She was superb. I mean, she was a fantastic student, and I mean, I'm talking about how life helps you to blossom, because she went to the United States to do a degree in one of the Ivy League colleges, and then, I mean, she changed her course and she's been in touch with us every single year when she's come back to Kolkata. And then, hey presto, she tells me one day that, ma'am, where I'm going? I said, so where are you going? Because she had just wrapped up her graduation. I'm going to Oxford. So I said, wow. And she said, no, don't say wow like that. So I said, but Oxford is wow to me. I mean, whoever goes. She said, no, but you have to hear why I'm going there and what is it that I'm going to pursue. So I said, yes, what is it that you're going to pursue? And you won't believe it. She told me that she was planning to write a thesis on the impact of cricket on the Indian and Pakistan mentality and how that has groomed the thinking of two nations. So, I mean, here is what I doff my hat at. It really is wow. I mean, here is a student who was the tops in her class and she has chosen to pursue this. She's finished that course now and she's back in Kolkata. But I've never gotten over that. So, I mean, here is what we are here for.
And children come up with these surprise googlies, seriously. I mean,
they off to the institutions that
support us. Exactly.
No, in fact, Anuradha, what I think, if we look at all the teachers who are there in this room, and if we were to exchange stories of our ex-students, how we could spend a lifetime recounting their success stories, and it is so heartwarming. And we keep talking about some of these children who never ever passed in a single examination. And we used to always tell each other they only passed because we prayed so hard that they would pass.
No, I remember what
but,
she's saying. I have to add this here, that there were these children, and mind you, they are celebrities in their own right as we speak
that's
today.
That's what I was going to say. Exactly.
I was so distressed. I think my blood pressure started rising at that point of time. There was this one child, and I would go into the staff room and tell my friends, what is going to happen? I mean, history is a compulsory subject in the boards, and she is unable to get a double digit. Every year, I mean, from 8, 9, 10, all she's been getting is in single digits with me, and that red mark has persisted. I mean, hats off to consistency. But hey presto, I mean, today, she is one of the leading chefs in India. She runs 2 outstanding restaurants, one in our city, one in Mumbai. And I mean, I can't stop being proud of her. And the real story is that all I remember all my life is me hollering at her. But the real story is that girl came back and she said, "Ma'am, I'm where I am because of the way you used to scold me and told me, find your way." Yes, there we are.
The world is also a very different world now.
Exactly.
Actually, when I wanted to be a chef, my father looked at me and said to me, "What are you running?"
Exactly.
That was his expression.
But
Yeah,
that was a very new profession.
Yeah, but then I've never forgiven him for that. I mean, I love my dad, but then that's not what he should have said.
But these are the real success stories. The brilliant ones or the good ones.
Will be brilliant anyway.
They will do well.
Yes.
They are
I mean, that's why I think we gave both sides,
Yes.
There's this one star who was always a star, and here's this girl, who was absolutely rock bottom, but there she is, shining
But
her way through.
the tragedy really is, this is where I feel these are the real heroes. And I really, really marvel at how they get through these difficult years in high school. The kind of punishing schedule that they maintain. They wake up in the morning, they come to school, they sit through deadly dull classes sometimes. And then they go home, they quickly grab a bite for lunch, and then they do 6 hours of tuition every day. And then they go to multiple tuitions. And then, as if that's not enough, they have to build their CVs. I've become allergic to that expression because I hear that because they have to build their CVs, because they aspire to get into good colleges of their choice, they have to excel at co-curricular activities. They don't do those for as hobbies. They do it because they have to excel. They have to excel at sports. The other day I was sitting next to someone on a flight that I was taking, and that parent told me that their child is learning to play 2 musical instruments because learning one was too common. And not only that, and then of course they have to have community service, not because they want to serve the community, but because it looks good on their CV. So everything, where you have people going in for community service, I have friends, I'm associated with a number of organizations, as you know.
NGOs, yeah.
And those NGOs have stopped taking in, these interns because these children, the first question they go to the NGO and say, "I want to do my summer with you. Will you give me a certificate?" So they said the moment we hear that, we know that there is no commitment, no dedication. They just want to clock those 30 hours or whatever the requirement is, and then they walk out with no strings attached.
Amita, another flip side story. In our school, I was teaching at 12, so there was this very, very brilliant girl who always came second because the first position was always for the head girl there. So then, we were all preparing for joint entrance and IIT. She wasn't. And I knew she wanted to be an engineer. So one day I called her and said, "What happened? You're not going to it, but not this year." I said, "Why?"
Because
She said, "I want to take a gap year." And I actually learned this concept from her. This would be 40 years back. Yeah, I learned the concept from her. She said, "I want to enjoy my 2 years in high school. I want my board results to be good because they'll be my companions for life. And then for 1 year, I'll concentrate on extracurricular activities and prepare for the joint entrance." She did that. She was second in joint entrance, and she's a brilliant computer engineer. So the concept of gap year has to be good.
No, because a friend of mine who's heading a multinational company in India, we were having a cup of tea the other and he said something very interesting. He said, "Vishnu, you know something? I have a lot of these guys with their IITs and IIMs coming on for interviews. most of them are unemployable.
Yes.
Why?
Absolutely.
So fantastic degrees. First in this, IIT, IIM, brilliant careers. But the moment you talk of anything out of that track, they're off.
Not only
A
that,
company doesn't run like that. The world doesn't run that way.
Sure.
not only that, Dr. Mukherjee, if they always are not on the top, which you can't be throughout your life, the depression that sets in their lives, they cannot come out.
They can't take it.
I can give you so many suicide cases of joint depression.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
So that is also.
No, we used to have these discussions every morning with my children. I used to drop them off to school. First my son, then my daughter. So every morning used to be a session, and my daughter used to write it down. Two things come up when we just said this. One was, you'll always have somebody who'll outpunch you. You can never be the best boxer ever.
Of course.
Second is, who is a good fighter? It's not like who can punch the hardest, but the guy who will fall back and come back again.
Yes.
Who's resilient.
Can
So you
get
have to
up.
come back, whatever it takes in life.
It is not just the students.
Anything.
Parents coming to admit their 3-year-old to a school asking me, "Apna school पढ़ले हो IIT ते ढूंढते पारबे?"
Yeah.
So my answer was, by the time your son is there to get into IIT, by that time if there is a better institution you wouldn't put him there. The sarcasm was of course lost. So these are the questions that come to us for a 3-year-old child. Parents are saying, "Can you put IIT?"
No, there's another one which I can add to that. Are my children, is the school going to be able to make facilities for my child to take the Olympiads?
Okay, yes, that's now really.
See, there'll always be a goal.
I know.
But that's not the end. Because you need to, I don't know, the kids nowadays, they don't introspect because none of us do. You need to
They
introspect.
are not taught to.
I think, you know, when you said these IIT, IIM genius, they are unemployable. I think it was Lucy Moody who said in his autobiography or memoir that when we take in the toppers of IIM, we have to unteach them. So to fit in, to adjust to teamwork, to look at people, other people, to have good people relationships, take a break. They are not used to that. They also continue to live in the bubble.
True.
And therefore they cannot connect.
They cannot take a simple hit.
Absolutely.
They're very fragile.
Much as we would like to carry on, but then there is a paucity of time, so I think we'll have to wrap up. Give me 1 minute, Dr. Das. Thank you very much for coming. And for those of you who will catch this on YouTube later, if you have questions, if you have issues, if you want us to address them, if you want our experts to look at them, please do put in comments over there. Please ask questions, because this is a burning issue. It is, we are talking about the future of our children, who are the future of our country. So as responsible adults, as teachers, as parents, we have a very, very big role to play. As the discussion must have thrown up, that within each one of us, we have a hero, we also have a villain. It is up to us to highlight what we want to be, maybe unlearn a few things that we have learned, maybe not succumb to the conditioning that society imposes on us, maybe look at ourselves like a refresher course and relearn and unlearn and try to learn again. So there is no limit to learning. We always need to kind of, take a fresh look at things and start all over again. And there is nothing wrong with that. So on that note, it's thank you, and thank you again, TCAA. It was wonderful hosting this event here, and that's all for today. Until next time, in April, we will come back with episode 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you.